UpWURDradio.com. You can listen live anytime and log on. If you don't have that app, let me tell you where you need to go and download an app like you know and join the 4-word movement. Get your membership today. We do a lot of talk about cooperative economics. Y'all need to log on to WURDradio.com right now. Is there one? No, somebody, seriously. We do a whole lot of talking. We got to walk that walk with our membership. So I say, go hard with your card. Don't say it with your chest. Right now, we have the one and only Dr. Anthony Montero in the studio, not just calling in,
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I see he's low-key today. He's sitting back. I see you don't have the book, but you got it online, right? I know you're always ready.
Well, yes, I am. And I was really listening and enjoying your conversation, and especially your reference to historical context. And, this is the month of Ramadan, and
yes.
Ramadan Mubarak to all of our Muslim brothers and sisters. And also, Malcolm X's, Al-Hajj Malik Shabaz's birthday.
Yeah, just passed, right?
Yeah, just passed in the month of Ramadan. And I wanted to read a letter that he wrote from Mecca on April 26, 1964.
All right.
And the reason I wanted to bring this in this year of Du Bois was the fact that, Malcolm always emphasized, as you did this morning, that history is best qualified to reward our research.
Yes, sir.
And he was a historian, and he was very appreciative and sensitive to the significance of history to empower the oppressed. But, and that brings him, very close to Du Bois. In 1964, he makes his second trip to Africa. A lot of people don't know that Malcolm made 3 trips to Africa. The first was in 1959, and he made 2 in 1964. Now, very significantly, on the second trip, he also goes to Mecca. And in coming back to the United States, he comes through Ghana. And Du Bois had just died 6 months earlier in Accra, Ghana. But his wife and many of Du Bois's associates were still in Ghana. And when Malcolm comes through Ghana, he meets Du Bois's second wife, Shirley Graham Du Bois. But significantly, I want to read this letter. This is a unbelievable letter that,
So this is a letter from Malcolm X?
To the United States.
Gotcha.
And it's April 26, 1964. And I just let me emphasize one other point about this year of 1964. As everyone knows, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, which simply gave us the right to be citizens in the nation that our free labor had built. But in that year also, John Coltrane releases probably his best-known album entitled A Love Supreme. Now, the interesting thing about that album, and many people are familiar with it, is that in a part of it, he chants A Love Supreme. But what he's saying, if you listen closely, is Allah Supreme. Allah Supreme. And that relates to this letter from Malcolm. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read it.
Do.
Thank you. Mecca, Saudi Arabia, April 26, 1964. I've just completed my pilgrimage, Hajj, here to the holy city of Mecca, the holiest city on earth, which is absolutely forbidden for non-Muslims to even rest their eyes upon. This pilgrimage is the most important event in the life of all Muslims, and there are over 226,000 who are here right now from outside of Arabia. From Turkey came the largest contingent, around 50,000, in over 600 buses. This refutes Westerner propaganda that Turkey is turning away from Islam. I know of only 2 others who have made the actual Hajj to Mecca from America, and both of them are West Indians who also converted to Islam. Mr. Elijah Muhammad, two of his sons, and a couple of his followers visited Mecca outside the Hajj season, and their visit is known as the Umrah, or lesser pilgrimage. It is considered a blessing in the Muslim world even to make the Umrah. I very much doubt that 10 American citizens have ever visited Mecca, and I do believe that I might be the first American-born Negro to make the actual Hajj itself. I'm not saying this to boast, but to only point out what a wonderful accomplishment and blessing it is, and also to enable you to be in a better position intellectually to evaluate it in its proper light, and then your own intelligence can place it in its proper place. This pilgrimage to the holiest of cities has been a unique experience for me, but one which has made me the recipient of numerous unexpected blessings beyond my wildest dreams. Shortly after my arrival in Jeddah, I was met by Prince Mohammed Faisal, who informed me that his illustrious father, His Excellency Crown Prince Faisal, had decreed that I be received in such a way, the rule of Arabia, that I be his guest. What has happened since then would take several books to describe, but through all of this, His Excellency and I have since had a very wonderful visit. Never have I been so highly honored, and never had such honor and respect made me feel more humble and unworthy. Who would believe that such blessings could be heaped upon an American Negro? But in the Muslim world, where one accepts Islam and ceases to be white or Negro, Islam recognizes all men as men because the people here in Arabia believe that God is one. They believe that all people are also one, and that all our brothers and sisters are one human family. I have never before witnessed such sincere hospitality and the practice of true brotherhood as I have seen it here in Arabia. In fact, all I have seen and experienced on this pilgrimage forced me to rearrange much of my thought pattern and to toss aside more of my previous conclusions. This adjustment to reality wasn't so difficult for me to undergo, because despite my firm conviction in whatever I believe, I have always tried to keep an open mind, which is absolutely necessary to reflect the flexibility that must go hand in hand with anyone with an intelligent quest for truth. There are Muslims here of all colors and from every part of this earth. During the past days here in Mecca, Jeddah, Mina, and Musdalif, while understanding the rituals of the Hajj, I have eaten from the same plate, drank from the same glass, and slept on the same bed or rug with kings, potentates, and other forms of rulers, with fellow Muslims whose skin was the whitest of white, whose eyes was the bluest of blue, and whose hair was the blondest of blonde. I could look into their blue eyes and see that they regarded me as the same brother, because their faith is one God, Allah, had actually removed, quote, white from their mind, which automatically changed their attitude and their behavior towards people of other colors. Their beliefs in the oneness has made them so different from American whites that their colors played no part in my mind in my dealings with them. Their sincerity to one God and their acceptance of all people as equals makes them also accepted as equals into the brotherhood of Islam along with non-whites. If white Americans could accept the religion of Islam, if they could accept the oneness of God, they too could then sincerely accept the oneness of men and cease to measure others always in terms of their differences in color. And with racism now plaguing America like an incurable cancer, All thinking Americans should be more receptive to Islam as an already proven solution to the race problem. The American Negro could never be blamed for his racial animosities because his are only reactions or defense mechanisms which his subconscious intelligence has forced him to react against the conscious racism practice initiated against Negroes in America by American whites. But as America's insane obsession with racism leads her up the suicidal path, nearer to the precipice that leads to the bottomless pits below, I do believe that whites of the younger generation in the colleges and universities, through their own young, less hampered intellects, will see the handwriting on the wall and turn for spiritual salvation to the religion of Islam and force the older generation to turn with them. This is the only way white America can ward off the inevitable disaster that racism always leads to, and Hitler's Nazi Germany was best proof of this. Now that I have visited Mecca and gotten my own personal spiritual path adjusted to where I can better understand the depths of my religion, I shall be leaving in a couple of days to continue my journey into our African fatherland. Allah willing, on May 20th, before my return to New York, I shall have visited the Sudan, Kenya, Tanganyika, Zanzibar, Nigeria, Ghana, and Algeria. You may use this letter in any way you desire. El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X.
And that's 1964.
1964. This is only less than a year before he's assassinated on February 21st, 1965. And here, I use this letter, which is, of course, in the context of Islam, but in the context also of his evolving Pan-Africanism, because on this trip, he would speak to the second conference of the Organization of African Unity to some 34 African heads of state and liberation leaders, and he was the first African American to speak to the Organization of African Unity, and he called for Pan-African unity. And as you're aware, he would return to the United States, express his willingness to unite with Dr. Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement as they move forward in voting rights. He would influence Stokely Carmichael and the young activists in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, meeting with them. And then, of course, when he returns to Ghana, he meets, and this is very significant, I think, with the second wife of W.E.B. Du Bois, and she would, in 1965, only a few weeks after Malcolm is assassinated, deliver an address over Ghanaian radio where she talked about his return to the United States and where she and people like Maya Angelou had urged him not to return or to be careful. And he said, I've learned from Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, that the highest principle is the principle of unity. And if I could bring that message to the African American people, I am prepared to give my life for that.
They say, what greater act than to lay down your life for your brother. Brother Omar Wiley, you got to salute.
That's right.
After the break, we're going to continue with Dr. Anthony Montero. We're talking about Malcolm X, 1964 letter to the United States after his pilgrimage to Mecca and the 3 visits to Africa that he took. And we want you to join the conversation. Get your questions ready because class is in session. 215-634-8065. I am the rapping professor, young fearless Aaron Smith. She is Kawesa, the super producer. Put some respect on her name. And here's Jay Scott with 2 T's taking over the technology over there. Make sure you hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And the most important thing is you. And we thank you for waking up with word, y'all.
Philly never stops moving. We're punching the clock, we're burning the midnight oil. We're morning people and late night legends. Our time is everything. That's why we take SEPTA. It's more than a ride. It's 5 or 10 or 30 minutes of me time. Time to text mom, crush a crossword, catch the zombie finale, or nap like a boss. All while we're getting into town, out of town, and all around town. SEPTA is our freedom. SEPTA is our Philly. SEPTA is how we roll. Visit iSEPTAPhilly.com to roll with us.
Save your sight. Glaucoma is a blinding disease that runs in families. This disease is characterized by degeneration of the optic nerve and corresponding vision loss, often unnoticed in early stages. Glaucoma is the leading cause of irreversible blindness, 5 times more common in African Americans and much more damaging to vision. If you've been diagnosed with glaucoma and are interested in participating in a study, call today. Eligible participants will receive an eye exam and second opinion from a glaucoma specialist. You can help prevent glaucoma in future generations, in your own family, and learn more about the genetics of this disease. Call today at 215-712-8985. That's 215-712-8985.
Join WURD Radio, the Village of Arts and Humanities, and other community partners on May 24th and 25th for Transmit Transform, a 2-day interactive experience presented as part of the Word on Violence initiative. Transmit Transform will provide the community with an opportunity to share audio memorials from those directly impacted by neighborhood violence. Come be a part of this unique community celebration featuring a live broadcast on WURD Radio, art making by the Village of Arts and Humanities, resource tables with information from city agencies and community organizations, and the Village's mobile recording studio, where members of the community will be invited to uplift the lives of lost loved ones through personal stories. Don't miss Transmit Transform, Thursday, May 24th and Friday, May 25th, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Fodderall Square, across from Fairhill Apartments, on North 11th Street between Cumberland and York. For more information, visit wordradio.com.
Celebrating 15 years as the voice of the community. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM WURD and 900 AM WURD, Philadelphia, and Black Talk Media. You're listening to Wake Up with WURD on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, Independent Black Media.
Independent Black Media, 900 AM WURD. You are waking up with WURD, y'all. 96.1 FM WURDradio.com. Listen live anytime and log on. And if you don't have that app, y'all know where to go. Download that app and app like you know. And if you don't got your membership, you better get your card. Go hard with your card. The forward movement is on and popping. And tomorrow and Friday, Fodderall Square, the Transform event. Make sure you get down there by 11th. And Cumberland, we're going to be out there crossing the Fairhill Apartments, y'all. We're going to have some healing. That's what we need to do. We can't just have headlines that deal with things like violence. We can't just, have statistics and politicians speaking about policy. We need to come together as a community and help to heal one another through our common understanding. And just to hug somebody, to smile at somebody, to remember a loved one. These are important things that we need to incorporate and really activate and implement our culture and not just talk about culture. And you talk about the name Omawale when we're off the mic. If you can share with the audience some of that insight.
Yeah, because Malcolm went through many names over the course of his life, and Omawale was a name given to him in Africa, and Omawale is from the Yoruba language, and it means the son who has returned.
The son who has returned.
Yes, so I just wanted.
So it's only right that he came home. If he stayed where he was, it wouldn't even have been.
Well, he had to go home to be enriched in order to come back here and be the fighter that he was for the short period for the rest of his life. It's quite interesting and profound and instructive. Instructive. And I heard your earlier conversation, and I really appreciate, Professor Smith, your emphasis upon history. And history is not just the history that we remember or that we have lived. It's the history that has made us and who we are today and what we can draw upon as a resource in our struggle for freedom. And Malcolm is that huge Pan-Africanist revolutionary, in fact, socialist, who saw a vision of humanity in the struggle against the color line. The color line was the problem, not the solution.
Got you. Some people want to join in on the conversation. I just want to make sure I open these phone lines up. Dr. Anthony Montero is in studio. Brother Timothy from South Philly wants to make a comment about Du Bois. Thank you for waking up with Word, Brother Timothy.
Yes, Dr. Montero, I want you to know I like what you said when you're observing that his birthday is also in the month of Ramadan, and I've been on my fast, and I've been reading his book backwards and forwards, the autobiography of Malcolm X, my Quran, and other things of great people of that time period and before. But I was just thinking about what you were saying, because Malcolm was so caught up, so great, with a worldwide conspiracy, because he's denied, I think, admission in France. He's almost poisoned in certain places, and he has to deal with a situation in America, and he understands, like King, that over in America, there are some uncurable devils that he has to deal with. And he has to dealing with the Nation of Islam and some of the people who are jealous of him, they envy. And you constantly think about a man who evolved and he evolved and he evolved and he becomes so great.
Yeah.
And King or him are neither here.
Yeah.
So for you to acknowledge that, to bring that about, man, I think is a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. It's a very humbling letter, and it's a letter that forces us to reflect on what we know and how we know Malcolm or Malik, Alhaj Malik Shabazz. I mean, how we know him. And I think there are a lot of ways that we know him that are incorrect, because I think that his trips to Africa and to Mecca, of course, were educational trips, and he saw the world and he saw the problems that humanity faced, and if I might say, he saw how the color line and colonialism intertwined, as Du Bois understood, with the question of war and peace, which is very much upon us as we speak now.
Even today.
Yes.
Brother Tony from Mount Airy, he wanted to join the conversation as well. Brother Tony, thank you for waking up with Word.
Good morning, Dr. Smith, Dr. Montero. How y'all doing today?
Doing good. Chilling.
All right, I'd like to thank Dr. Montero for coming on and referencing that speech by Malcolm X. I've actually never heard that speech specifically before in the past. What I thought was there are a variety of different valuable things as it relates to that speech, but what I want to focus on is the fact that Malcolm X actually talked about this idea of the oneness of God as being something particularly important and meaningful as it relates to us establishing an idea of not only a unity amongst our people, but also a unity as it exists in the world. So I just pulled that letter up on the internet, and I see there that Malcolm X said, he said, I can see from this that perhaps if white Americans could accept the oneness of God, perhaps too, they could accept the reality of the oneness of man. Now, I think that particular topic is important in a variety of reasons, but you will also find that idea of the oneness of God as not being something particularly unique to Islam, but it is also something that you will find not only within African spiritual cultures and systems, but within other contexts as well. And we have Sister Arakan Rosa Rundu about the Quran, and she speaks about this issue almost every week in a variety of different contexts. But that idea of oneness of God is something that Kwame Nkrumah himself also believed in, and he's talked about in his text, conscientism. So as it relates to that idea, I just wanted to emphasize that idea a little bit, and just wondering if Dr. Montero had any comments or contributions that he would like to make about that.
Well, I'm just, Professor.
Now you're bringing the scholars out when they say conscientism. And I would like to add that Kwame Nkrumah, he's a great Phi Beta Sigma man. Shout out to Lincoln University. I just want to throw that in there as well. But no, you're definitely bringing the readers and the scholars out, and that's important.
And I can tell you, Professor Smith and I were here almost mesmerized listening to you.
Oh no,
I mean, it was so beautiful the way you put that.
Definitely.
And I have nothing to add to what you have said.
Yeah, just thank you. Yeah, thank you for waking up with Word. Now, one thing I did want to, just to bring it full circle, we've been talking all day about this victory from Stacey Abrams. She won the Georgia Democratic primary, and she's going to be the first black woman to be a major party nominee for governor in the United States. And, she won on Tuesday, according to the New York Times. So she was saying that we need to get it done, though. It's not over. She's just, she's advanced per se for my, sports fans, who aren't into politics. She's advanced in the bracket. She's in the finals. We got to make sure we seal the deal and close the series and also take back the house. One thing that I noticed about Du Bois that's seldom expressed is that he was one of the earlier feminist writers, if you can call it that, or just he wrote about equality and women's issues. I don't want to get confused with Gloria Steinem work with the CIA and all that, and they think that I'm with that. I'm not with that. But yeah, so this idea of him in the tradition of maybe a Frederick Douglass, really taking seriously issues unique to women and using his platform as a means to bring attention to these issues, and him being so politically astute. I want you to kind of give a Du Boisian reflection on some of the things that are taking place now and just the history of certain African American writers contributing to the women's movement by using their platform to draw attention to those issues.
Well, Du Bois said after the struggle for world peace and against the color line, the question of the emancipation of the African woman is the third point on the agenda. So and this is in 1920 when he publishes this famous essay called The Damnation of Women, but he contextualizes it differently than feminists or even black feminists today would contextualize it, because he does not separate the black woman from the black liberation struggle, nor from the struggle for the renaissance of African and black civilization, nor from his concept of the unity of Pan-Africa and Pan-Asia as the foundation of the unity of humanity, precisely what Malcolm was talking about from a Islamic context, the oneness of God as a reflection of the oneness of man, which I take to mean the oneness of the strivings of all of humanity for freedom and oneness. Now, I relate that very, very much to Philadelphia right now with the homicide epidemic of young black men and women killing one another. That is a breakdown of society, of culture, and a lack of recognition of oneness.
Yeah, there's definitely no interconnectivity or reflection of self when you are
solidarity or common struggle.
Definitely not.
I
hear you.
So that's
could you say the name of that piece that Du Bois wrote again?
Yes. It's entitled The Damnation of Women, and you can get it on the internet.
Because, in Afrocentric circles or even in just African American studies, a lot of times when people have critiques of especially second wave feminism, as, sometimes described more so as white feminism, people would think that you're being sexist because you're critiquing feminism, because some people equate feminism with feminine. Mistakenly. And they don't read like Dr. Clenora Williams, Hudson Williams. They don't read her stuff about Africana womanism, what that's called melanated Africana womanism. They don't understand that we are not against the equality component, we're against the separation from the larger struggle and the larger liberation of African people.
Yeah, because as you say, the second wave feminists never looked at the black struggle as central to the emancipation of women and men. And so, it's always leaning or predisposed towards a white-centric womanism.
And who was that Ida B. Wells had to come at? Was that Susan B. Anthony? One of those, I remember when Ida B. Wells had to check a couple of them young ladies, like, hey, And then when we got the right to vote, when I say we talk about black men, some of those same early feminists were the ones saying, how dare they give these, comparing us to animals, in a Trump type way, give them the right to vote before us. And a lot of the critiques, a lot of the sisters aren't giving these critiques because they want the sisters on their side. So they say, come join our struggle, sister. And I often ask people, I said, they watched you get beat and maimed and whipped and raped for 246 years. They never identified with you during any of this period of time based on you sharing a common anatomy.
And there was always that alternative narrative from black women. And that's why Shirley Graham Du Bois is very important, especially in the framework of her meeting Malcolm X in Ghana, and she being, after her husband's death, she being an advisor and in the government of Ghana and of Kwame Nkrumah. And this reflected not only her idea of Pan-Africanism, but Malcolm X's emerging and progressive and radical concept of Pan-Africanism. I think it's very important. And, the other thing is, you don't have to be non-religious or anti-religion or anti-Islam or anti-Christian to be a revolutionary and a person dedicated to radical social transformation. That's what Malcolm teaches us.
Yeah, I always say in class the importance of nuance and delineation.
Well, that's
like
true.
you said, to be able to flesh it out and say you don't have to be this to be that. There can be both and situations.
That's right.
There's sliding continuums on various topics, and I think that's important for academics to introduce that into the larger conversations. To me, that's part of our contribution.
And something, you take a person like Malcolm X, who was not an academic, but he was a powerful world intellectual.
Yes, definitely.
And often the academic is more narrowed down, and the intellectual is a broad historical thinker.
Because Malcolm chopped them all up.
Yeah,
man.
he chopped everything up.
He'd be on a panel with 3 or 4 people and just go down the line. It was like a Royal Rumble. And he would, I don't remember Malcolm being stumped once. So we thank Dr. Anthony Montero for joining us in studio as always in this year of Du Bois. We celebrate Stacey Abrams for being the first black woman to be a major party nominee for governor in the United States. Georgia, we salute you, and we are going to do the same thing and follow. She said we got to get it done. November. We taking back the house. We're going to change our city, change our nation. We had a great conversation about the $7 billion that's spent on weaves and wigs. So maybe after the year of Du Bois, we need the year of the natural. Brothers, we not off the hook either. We got to stop paying $500 for sneakers and spending 8 hours a day playing video games. We all got a lot of work to do. But as long as you know that tomorrow you out there, 5 Royal Square, across from Fairhill Apartments, transmit, transform. We need you out there Thursday and Friday. Tell a friend to tell 10. I am Young Fearless, the rapping professor. She is Kawesa, the super producer. He is Jay Scott with 2 T's taking over the technology. And we thank you. Keep it locked, y'all, for waking up with Word.
When the day that lies ahead of me.
Attention, Word audience. Do you know that Pico can provide